Good day everyone, Shadow back again, just doing another video on crafting this time. So material, equipment crafting and making it clear generals. Firstly, we'll have a look at the materials. So these are the materials that you use to make your gear. You got different types, so you got purple crystals, blue stones, rubies, pearls, iron, meteorite, wood, bronze, animal bones, leather, feathers, and dragon scales. Some you use more than others depending on the level of gear you're crafting. So some are quite intense in the leather and the animal bones and feathers. They're probably the three that you'll be using the most, and wood's a bit heavy as well. We'll look at how to get those. So you usually get materials from material chests, which are these ones here, which you collect from gathering, killing monsters. You also get material bags, which you can get in packs. You can also get them in the crazy eggs. So there's a fair few ways to get materials, but you do need quite a lot of them. The new feature that I've got is this research factory, which you can produce materials. So you basically select which one you want. You can see here I'm working on animal bones, and then I think it takes about 3 hours to create one. So it is a very time-consuming process. You can speed them up with gems. To me, it's not worth it. So that's how you get materials. And then you can also get materials from scrolls. So scrolls are the other thing that you need to make gear with, especially high level gear. There's a lot of stuff you don't really need it, but you got three levels of scrolls. You got king scrolls, these ones down here. You got warrior scrolls, and you've also got dragon scrolls. Scrolls can be broken down as well. So, for example, you can see here I've got 13 of the king's rings, and I'm never going to make 13 king's rings. And even if I am, I'll get more scrolls. So for now, I can disassemble some. So disassemble 5 of them, and I can get more materials that way as well. So you can disassemble scrolls, and you can also pick up gear as you play as well, which you can disassemble, and that'll give you more materials. So if you've got lots of low level gear, it pays to disassemble it, so then you can use the materials to create high level gear. Alrighty, let's have a look at the forge. So in your forge, you've got your different types of gear down here. You've got your helmets, your armor, your pants, boots, ring, and then your weapons. So you got your bow, your spear, your axe, and your sword. And then with each item, you've got different levels as well. You've got the basic wolfskin hood, buckskin hood, ranged cloth hood, ranged leather helmet, feather helmet, mithril helmet, legendary, mantle legendary, and then you got your dragon gear. So you can see I haven't unlocked these yet. I need forge level 27 to unlock these. And when you first start out, obviously you can't produce higher gear straight away. You got to level your forge up to go. And it just gives you an idea of the equipment that you need, the material. Sorry. If you got the scrolls for it, and what you're missing. So you can see that your lower gear doesn't require scrolls at all, and only requires purple materials. But as you go up, you've got orange materials in a scroll, gold materials in a scroll, then we got our red materials in a scroll. To me, it's not worth making gear anything other than the first one that I would even consider making would be the first gold, that requires the purple materials, and that's important to note, because when you go into your materials, it's very easy. So say for example, I was going to compose these. You can see I only have 2 of the purple material, If I were to compose these all the way, I'd end up with a lot more yellows, and you can't disassemble them to get more purples again. So it's important to know what kind of gear you're aiming for before you compose your materials, and only compose to the level that you need. So at the moment, you can see I'm building a siege axe for my defense general. And when you're crafting gear, it's always nice to remember to put your helmet on. So the Agile Crown helps with crafting speed. So I've got a 26% increase there, which does help. If you're going to speed build, it does help to take a lot of time off. And even if you're not speed building, it's just nice to have that bit extra there. As for what gear to build, it really depends on what you're trying to focus with your general. It does give you an idea. So, for example, this is a ranged helmet. This is a mounted helmet. There's no real ground. It's all really mounted or ranged. But you got to really look at the stats that it gives you. So, for example, the mounted helmet gives you mounted HP and siege machine attack and ranged strip attack. Now, to me, they're more, considering you've got siege machine attack and ranged attack. That's more of a ranged helmet than a mounted helmet, even though it does give you mounted HP. And if we look at the ranged, it gives you ground trip attack and ground trip HP and siege machine defense. So it really doesn't give any ranged strip bonus at all. So the names are a bit misleading. Don't just go ranged or mounted gear, because that's what you're trying to focus. You've got to look at what they give you, and then choose the best gear setup for that. Most people on the helmets would go the mounted helmet, because it just does a nice. You got ranged strip there, siege, and mounted all in the one. Same with armor. So you got to look at it. So the ranged armor gives mounted trip attack, mounted trip defense, and ranged trip HP. Whereas the mounted doesn't give any mounted bonus at all. Not sure why they've done it this way. So to me, this should be the ranged armor because it gives you siege and range, and this one here should be the mounted because it gives you 2 lots of mounted, even though it does give you a little bit of range as well. So don't just follow the name. Look for the stats that you want to pick up as well. So when selecting your gear, if you want a ranged focus general, the biggest difference comes on the weapons. So you can see the King's Bow here does ranged strip attack. The King's Spear does mounted trip attack. The King's Axe does siege machine attack, and the King's Sword does a ground trip attack. So that's probably the biggest difference of gear. You'll find that a lot of the ring, the boots, everything will be fairly similar, but the biggest difference comes down to the weapon. So I'm going to finish off my King's Axe now. So apply some speed ups from that. So you see I've still got 8 days remaining on this, but there's quite a few speed ups here I can use up just to get it done. So I now have my axe. So if I were to go into my items and go to equipment, scroll down, you'll be able to see the axe sitting there. There it is. You really don't want to click disassemble. That would be a disaster. So now we're going to look at how to improve that axe. So if we have a look at it at the moment, see the detail. It's only worth 6,000 power, and it only gives these attributes. So we're going to look at how we can increase those. Which again, go into our forge, and there's a couple of ways we can increase it. So if we have a look at the top, we've got star and refine. So star is basically like enhancing, same as when you enhance your generals. So you can apply stars to the gear, and that increases the power. So if we have a look, that's current power. It's not going to tell me. That's fair enough. That's alright. So anyway, so we saw that it was 6,000 power before. So now we're going to give it some stars, and we'll see what kind of power increase. So you can see that as you increase the stars, the stats increase as well. which is quite nice. Gives you a bit of an extra bonus there, and you can go up to 5 stars. That just gives you your extra stats. So it's now a 5-star Siege Axe, and it was 6,000 power. So now if we go back and have a look, and that would add 6,000 power if I were to put it on the general. Whereas now, being a 5-star piece, if I get a detail, we can see it's now worth 131,000 power. So that's a massive increase to your general power, as opposed to the 6,000 that it was. But we can go higher yet. So the next step is refining of the gear. So when you go to refine, you can add attributes to the different types of gear. We've clicked the info button up here. We're going to have a look at what attributes we can add. So helmets, they can take a HP boost. Being an attack, a defense general, I'm going to be looking for troop stats. I'm not going to worry about gathering speeds or subordinate city stuff. So I'm going to be looking at what will give me the big troop stat boosts. So helmets give HP, clothes give defense, pants give HP, boots give defense, rings give attack, and weapon gives attack. So the first ones that you sort of want to refine are your weapons and your ring to try and get a nice attack boost on there. And obviously, being a siege-based weapon, or being a defensive weapon in my case, I'm going to be wanting to work on some ranged troop attack and siege machine attack, and probably a little bit of mounted in there as well. So they're the 3 stats I'm aiming for. So we'll go in and refine now. So when you refine, you need gold and you need refining stones. And you also need some gems as well, which we'll go into have a look in a sec. So we'll look at refining that. So for first refining, these are the stats that it's given me. They're the value, and this is the possible value. So you can have a look here. It's given me a plus 231 base stat increase out of a possible 500. So it's less than half of what it could be. Siege machine attack 5.7%. Again, it can be between 1 and 15. So again, that's less than half of what it could be. Lumber gathering speed, don't really care about that. And subordinate city troop training, I don't really care about that. So the only ones there that I'd even be semi-interested in are these two. But because it's well below half, I'm not even going to bother keeping those. So I'm just going to cancel that. I'm going to try again. It is possible to add the same stat more than once. So you can see here we've now got 2 ranged troop attacks, which gives me a total of 7% increase. But again, those two combined are still less than half of what it could be. So they're not that great refinings. March speed, 5% march speed increase. Again, between 1 and 15, so it's less than half. Not that great. So I'm not going to keep that one either. We'll go again. Range troop attack. Again, 1.5%. Not worth keeping. Range troop attack. Base stat 108 out of 288. Well less than half. So they're not that great. March speed to monsters. Range attack. Again, they're not really giving us good values. Again, all quite low. Let's see if we can get a good one out of this. Okay, so 9.4% siege machine attack, 12.2% march speed increase. So that's well over half. That's quite a big increase. Being a defense general though, march speed is not important. So I'm not going to worry about keeping march speed. But this 9.4% siege machine attack, that does interest me. This plus 2 base stat out of 233, that's useless. But because of this siege machine attack, I'm going to keep that one. So now we can see that we've got our current setup, which is original, and then we've got a new setup. And then we've also got these pallets on the side here. And as I click them, you'll notice that gems cost gets involved. So I want to now keep my siege machine attack one, and I want to try and have another go at refining these 3. So now it's going to cost me 50 refining stones, 500k gold, and 1.5 gems to try and increase these 3 here. So you can see this is the old and this is the new. Siege machine attack still there because I kept it. It's replaced march speed with a +1 base stat siege machine attack, and it's replaced stone gathering with lumber gathering and siege machine attack with food gathering. So again, this one here is the one that I kept, and these 3 here are the new ones, and they're all useless. So I'm not even going to keep those. Again, you make sure the one you keep is locked. And we have a look. Again, a gathering one doesn't matter, and 2 crappy base stats, not going to keep them. But you can see refining takes up a lot of time and a lot of gold and a lot of gems. It is quite a painful process, but once you get it right, you can get massive increases. For example, if you were to somehow get 14% increases on range troop attack, that's like a 56% increase to range troop attack from one piece of equipment, plus whatever the other stats are on it as well. So that's quite good. So again, I've now got a range troop attack on there, which is what I'm looking for, and then I got 2 gathering ones, which I don't really want. But because to me the range troop attack is better than the march speed that I had, I'm going to keep those. Now you don't have to save these, you can let them go and just hope that you get one that's similar, or you can save them and spend the gems to go again. So again, we can see that we've got siege machine attack, range troop attack, as we kept them. Lumber gathering speed, don't really need, and mounted troop attack, it's probably just over half the base stat, but I prefer percentage increases to base stat increases, unless they're quite high base stat increases. So I'm not going to keep that one. Okay, we've now got a ground troop attack in there. Ground troop attack's probably not the greatest. So the ground troop attack base stat is quite low. So by adding a percentage to that, it doesn't really increase it that much. And then we got march speed. So I'm not really looking for ground troop attack, and I'm not looking for march speed, so I'm not going to keep those. I prefer another range or siege attack. So my eyes lit up then when I saw these 4 attacks, because that's exactly what I want: a siege attack, I want range attack, I want mounted attack, and I also want another siege attack. That would be fantastic. But then I saw the values. So the absolute lowest value you can have a siege machine attack, and a pretty average mounted troop attack. But compared to what I have at the moment, that's quite a good cultivation. Sorry, quite a good refining compared to what I've got. It's not great overall, but it's still better than what I had. So I'm happy to keep these 2 still, but I'm going to have another go at increasing these. So I'm just going to do another refining. Okay, so we can see that our mounted troop attack was 3.8. We've now got a 4.6. So you definitely want to save over the top of that. And we've got a ranged troop attack base stat increase of 68, which is probably better than the 1% siege machine attack increase. So that's an increase to me, so we'll keep those. But again, they're still not fantastic, so we want to try and increase those, so we'll refine again. Lumber gathering speed we don't want mounted troop attack. Stone gathering march speed, not worth it. And no matter gems. So where did that come from? That's better than the 1% siege, that's right. So these are the other stats that I've got now. I'll obviously in the future try and work on these a bit more, try and get them a bit more refined. But that's how refining works. You keep the stats that you want, and then you retry on the ones that you're not sure of until you get a decent sort of setup that you want. And the other effect that refining has, so if we remember that when it was 5-starred, it was 131,000 power, I'm pretty sure. We have a look at it now after it's been refined. It's now worth 156,000 power, 156.6. So refining adds extra power as well. And you can see there we've got our stats here, and then we've got our refining stats. So it wasn't a great refining. I can probably do better that in time, but it does get very expensive, especially when you're trying to save certain stats or not. So that's how you refine gear. Choosing gear. So that was just an animal bone that got created in my research factory. Let's have a look at generals. Actually, I'll have a look at gear. Sorry. I'll get my head sorted out sometime. Okay, gear. So Wendercraft gear. So obviously you want the highest gear possible for the highest power increase and the highest stat increase. So for things like my main attack general, I'll be aiming for dragon gear in the future. But right now I've got him set up with King's gear. For my defense general, again, dragon's gear will be the ultimate. But for now, I'm just sticking with King's. But the interesting one that I like to look at is things like gathering generals. So I've got a couple of generals here that I use for gathering, which is basically the Queen Jinubek. I've got 4 of her that I use for gathering. And what I'm going to do with these guys is I'm not going to spend the time waiting for King's gear, but what I will do with them is I'll give them warrior gear, which I get from those lower level scrolls. So there's our King's gear, and then there's our warrior gear. Because they still give a gathering boost increase. So if we have a look, the boots give us a 10% ore increase. The King's gear gives you 15%, so it's only a 5% difference. But the amount of time that you spend waiting to get the King's gear isn't worth it for someone like a gathering general. I'd much rather use up the scrolls that I get from the lower level monsters and create gear a bit quicker, just to give them their boost. So that's the only time that I'll be creating gear less than King's gear at the moment, is for my gathering generals. Eventually I'd want King's gear sets on most of my generals. Definitely my defense general, he'll be looking for Kings and then up to dragons. My subordinate cities generals will be getting the hand-me-down King's gear from my defense general and my main attack general. So ultimately it'll be dragon gear, King's gear, more Kings. Jamong will probably go Kings as well, because my main general's ranged focused, as is Jamong. So there's no point in having 2 high-powered ranged focused generals. Genghis will probably end up taking off a sub, so he won't be getting any gear. Second Nero, there's no point keeping him on a sub as well, so he'll probably be getting replaced. Rhaegar will probably be King's gear. Oda probably King's gear. Main marching general will be Dragon's gear. Gathering generals will be warrior gear. And Washington will be either dragons or Kings as well. So Washington's a great cav general. He's going to be my main boss killer, because he'll be purely cav focused, which will give the higher attacks against boss monsters, as opposed to my marching general, who's sort of a ranged siege focused for attacking. So he isn't as good against monsters as what Washington will be. So now that we've done the axe, I'm going to put it on this guy. So currently he's got a piece that's worth 1800, and his power is 835k. So if I give him the axe, it adds 156k power, and he's now up to 989k power. So eventually I'm going to go through and give him all 5-starred King's gear and refine it all to get his power up. We have a look at Rhaegar. Not the one. Let's try the proper one. So you can see he's got all 5-star gear, which is good, and it's all King's gears. It's a mix of range, siege, focus, because that's what I want on my attacking general. but I haven't done much with refining yet. So you can see there the refining isn't that great. Still got gathering speed, so I've got to work on those. And the weapon power isn't as high as it could be. Same with the helmet. So I've got gathering on there, which I don't really need. I've got a couple of HPs, a base stat HP, which isn't too bad, and a percentage increase on siege, which probably don't really want. Probably want more ground troop HP and range troop HP. So these were just quick refinements that I did, just to sort of add power. Wasn't really worried about what was going on. So this one here is not too bad. You can see we've got 3 range trip HPs there, but out of the 0 to 15, sorry, the 1 to 15, that's quite low. That's very low. That's still less than half, and then we got a base stat increase there as well. And you can tell by the power that it's not that great of a refinement. Boots. So again, they're all less than half of what they could be, and things like load increases you don't really want on a marching general. And then the ring, which should be high in attack as well. Useless on this general. Useless on this general. These two here aren't too bad on the general, but again, that's quite a good one. But that's quite low. But still, if I had the preference, I'd still change that over for a percentage increase rather than a base stat increase. So I hope that's answered some questions about gear crafting. We'll just go through and see what I can create next. So I might look at doing a set of boots. I reckon I've got the materials for. So I'm working on my defense general at the moment, which is Richard, and I can choose between the 2 King's Gear boots here. I've got all the materials I need, so all I've got to do is get the ones with the right stats. Ground troop defense, quite useful in a defending army. So your ground troops act as a wall, so increasing their defense and their HP, increases their survivability, which means that you can kill more enemy troops before they break through. Troops load, not useful. Gathering speed, not useful. And siege machine HP, so it just increases survivability of the siege while they're engaged in battle. And the other type we got, so mounted boots, mounted troop defense, not too bad. Range troop HP, not too bad. And then we got gathering speed and march speed. So for a defensive general, not important. So I can choose between mounted troop defense, range troop HP, or ground troop defense and siege machine HP. The things that I'm considering when I'm looking at this are the troop base stats. So we'll compare the first two first. We'll compare ground troop defense to mounted troop defense. So if I go to my ground troops, now these are tier 10. I've got a ground troop defense of 10,380. And I've got a mounted defense of 5,781. Now, of those two, obviously the ground defense base stat is a lot higher, which means that the percentage increase will have a lot more effect. Roughly twice the effect than what the mounted troop defense will have. So the mounted troop defense 12%, ground troop defense 12%. So they're both same percentages, but because the base stat of ground defense is so much higher, it'll give me a much better points value by using the ground troop defense over the mounted troop defense in defense. And the other one we're going to look at, siege machine HP versus range troop HP. So again, they're both the same value. Range troop HP 8,167. Siege machine 10's HP 3,355. Sorry. So again, the range troop is a lot higher. Roughly, well, it's over double. So the range troop HP will give a much better percentage increase than what the siege machine HP will. Which gives me a bit of a dilemma. because they want different bits of gear. So ground troop defense much better than mounted troop defense. Range troop HP much better than siege machine HP. But because of the size of the ground troop defense was still much higher than the range troop HP, I'm going to be going with the ground troop defense as my selection for my defense general. So that's just the thought process I go through when I'm selecting gear. I look at what stats they give and which ones are going to be the most effective. And I can always on the boots I can always add extra defense through refinement. So I can bring that range troop defense and mounted troop defense across if I really wanted to by using the refinement. So we get these started. And I may even just finish them off just because I can. That's what I want. Begin. I'll speed it up. Again, we'll go in, we'll star it. And we can give it a refinement, but because I was out of gems, I can't save any refinements. So what I can do is I just got to basically get the best 4 that come up. So we've got here 3 defenses. That one that's not really important, but I'll keep that anyway because of these 3. That's actually quite a good range troop defense increase. I'm going to do this a couple of times. Those 4 aren't as good as these 4, so I'm going to cancel them. Again, base stat increases, not as good as the ones I had. Try one more time. Range troop defense is less than the one I got there, and the rest of these don't really interest me at all. So I'm just going to stick with these ones that I got for now. Back to general. I'm going to give him a pair of boots. So you can see the power of these boots are again about the 155 mark. And that just increased his power to 1.14 mil. The last thing I want to talk about is opening scrolls. You saw earlier that I've got quite a few scroll chests sitting here. There you are. I prefer to wait until I've got about 20 chests before I open them. I don't like opening them one by one, because what tends to happen is you get lots of the one item if you do it one by one. Like the King's rings you saw earlier, I had 13 of those. Because if you open them one by one, it tends to just give you the crappy items. Whereas if you do something like you wait until you got quite a lot, we'll do some of the warrior ones. If you open them all up together, you get a much better spread of items. So you can see we've got an axe, a ring, 4 axes, a ring, 4 boots, 5 spears, 3 swords, 1 leg armor, 1 helmet. So the only thing that we're missing there from basically a full set is the body armor. So we're missing body armor and we're missing bow. Alright, that's it. So you get a nice good spread by saving the chests up rather than opening them all one by one. I find that's a much better way to open the chests up. So I hope that helped, and yeah, feel free to leave any comments. Thank you. Bye.